And we are back, Fashion Dolls, with our very special interview with Londale Theus Jr. I'm going to send him this live back. We're going to start over. IG was tripping on me for a minute, so let me invite him back so that we can get this interview started, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Marcos. All right, we're going to start back over because IG froze up on me for a minute. But we're back, so let me add Londale back. And as you guys can see, we're on it up. All right. Are we back, ladies and gentlemen? Can you guys see? Can y'all hear me?
I can see and hear everything. Cool.
Perfect. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Dollhouse. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was such a pleasure to have you here. So before we kick off this interview, how has 2022 been for you thus far? Because I know for you as a comedian, as a writer, and so many things, it's been difficult with all of these shutdowns, especially if you're in the New York area. That's affected a lot of people as well, too. So how have you been managing with this thus far?
2022 it's honestly been, things have been a lot better. So, when the shutdown happened and, I'm a live performer a lot. So I do on-camera stuff quite a bit. But I love live performance, stand-up comedy, sketch improv. So that was like done for so long. So since things opened back up and I've been able to do a lot of stand-up, I mean, when I'm doing stand-up, I'm just happy. So the shows have been going well. I was producing a monthly show for a bit that highlighted a lot of comedians of color in LA, and that was going well for a bit. Took a pause on that just to focus more on performing, because trying to produce shows during like the Omicron when it was like January and stuff was really difficult. So things have been going really good. Just shot a commercial for Regal and Pepsi last week. That was fun. So yeah, I'm just feeling really creatively fulfilled right now.
Okay. So let's get into this journey. You're a native of Los Angeles. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Los Angeles County area. Grew up like right by Magic Mountain, like in the valley. So like my grow up was like, we were in the suburbs, wasn't really much happening. But that's like my dad is from LA, my mom's from Detroit. So, my mom moved out here. We kind of settled a family out here. And my first love was basketball. Like that was my life. That's all I wanted to do, right? My uncle played in the NBA. My dad got drafted in the NBA. He tore his ACL, so he never was able to play. So like that was the first part of my journey. It was like, I'm out here playing basketball, and I'm going to make it to the NBA one day.
Okay. And speaking of basketball, you played with Division I NCAA basketball team, and you went to the tournaments. So tell us, what was that experience like for you? And not to mention, you're 6'6", so you're quite tall. I'm 5'7", so I'm a short girl. The only way I'd be tall is if I put on heels. So tell us about that experience about going to the tournaments and being a part of the NCAA.
Yeah. So that was really amazing experience, because that was my freshman year. So that's when I played with New Mexico State University. And that year we just had such a alignment of not only players, but, coaching, and just kind of everything was kind of going for us. We had a couple ups and downs that season, but we had the conference championship tournament at our home stadium. So when we won our conference championship, like the whole stadium rushed the floor, and having that experience was cool and really great. And so that winning that conference championship allowed us to automatically be in the NCAA tournament. And then we got 14 seed, and we played against the 3rd seed Texas when Kevin Durant was playing, and he was already like college player of the year at that point. So one of the fun experiences I had preparing for the tournament was I wasn't a starter. I was on the bench, right? So the starters would have to prepare for the team. So the bench players, we would get to play like we were Texas, right? And so we were given like type of plays Texas would run, and the coaches made me Kevin Durant, and they were just like, "Yo, shoot it from wherever you get it," and it's their job to stop you. So during that practice and prepping for the team, I had a lot of fun, because I was just like, boom, boom. I was just pulling from everywhere. I had free range to just like do whatever I wanted, and that was a lot of fun. And then actually going to the tournament, I think it was in Spokane, Washington, being at the core, being in the tournament, being a part of all of that. my freshman year was truly an amazing experience. And we lost by, I think, about 10 points because it was a close game for most of the game. And then like last couple of minutes, they started to take it out. The messed up thing though was like when we left, right? When we left New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico, small town, college town, we had like the whole city was like celebrating and doing everything. And it was like a huge send off, right? We come back on the bus after the tournament, after losing, it was tumbleweeds. It was quiet. We didn't get no type of welcome home.
Wow. And it's just that much. Just jump started you into your entertainment career, writing, acting, doing comedy. And one thing I didn't know about you is that you appeared in Shakespeare's As You Like It and Sparrow's Late, a cowboy song. So it's kind of got you into it. I didn't even know you were in the theater program at CSU. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so, you know, kind of like father, like son, I tore my ACL my sophomore into my junior year. So that kind of ended my basketball career. I had another knee injury right after that I wasn't able to recover from. So it was that transition where my dad, he actually made a transition and started acting at 50, age 50 years old. He was like, you know what, I'm gonna start acting, right? I was still recovering from my injuries at that time. So I was kind of like being influenced by him as far as like I would help him do auditions, help him read. He was like, yo, you're pretty good at this. And so once I had that second knee injury and I was like, basketball's done, the next closest thing, passion I had was acting, because I would always do like impressions. I would like do videos for my classmates of like Denzel. I'm like, okay, all right, that's what I'm talking about. You hear me, son? I bust into Jay's like, yo, it's crazy, your boy. So like, I got a lot of good positive attention from that. So I'm like, okay, why don't I explore performing? So I had like 1 year left to graduate as a business marketing major. I said, forget it. I'm in Idaho to play basketball and get a degree, but if I can't play basketball, I'm not gonna stay in Idaho. So went back home, changed my major to theater, and did 2 years of theater at Cal State Long Beach. And that was really great because I already did all my general education. So I had 2 years of like almost nothing but theater classes. So that was like my introduction into like, okay, I'm an actor now. I'm an artist now. And yeah, being in As You Like It, being in a lot of Shakespeare productions when I first went out there. One of the first productions was like a Shakespeare that they made a musical, and I had no singing ability at all. So I remember like I couldn't hear the notes. They'd be like, huh, and I'd be like, I don't know what you're doing. So my first introduction was like, the music director was like, can you lip sync for all of this? And I was like, gladly. But then after that, I got some singing stuff, so I was able to do some more musicals and other things. And that really kind of launched my kind of second life, my second identity as an actor and as an artist.
That's about that balance. And you also did the comedy store as well too, world famous comedy store, Flappers. So tell us about that. What was that beginning like for you? You know, fresh out of CSU, now going into the comedy field, jumping in, you getting your feet wet. What is that experience like for you when you're on stage? When you have that microphone?
Oh, man,
and you
it's incredible. So I did 2 years of theater, and most of it was dramatic, right? So, and I'm naturally a comedic person. So after I graduated, I'm like, I need to do comedy. Like I was just so hungry to do comedy. And I never thought myself like funny enough. I would do sketches and stuff, but never thought I was funny enough to do stand-up. But I was always a big fan. But I was in this web series, and the producer thought I was hilarious. And she was like, you know what? She found out about this show at the Comedy Store. She's like, you know what? You need to do this show. It's kind of what they call a bringer show, meaning like you newer comics have to bring audience, like bring like 5 people, you get 5 minutes. And so that's my first show that I did. And, you know, I prepared my 5-minute set. It was the main room of the Comedy Store. Went up there, families there, friends and other stuff. I went up and it just almost felt like a wave, like everything just flowed. And I had a great set. And it was just like such an amazing experience of feeling like you're in the zone. And after that, I was just kind of hooked. I'm like, I kept doing it all the time, kept performing at all these different clubs, and kind of went to that growth process of, as every comedian knows, you might have a good set when you first start off, but it's a long journey to be a consistently good comedian. So then I would have sets of like that I was like, ooh, that was a rough set. Or I would bomb one night. I'm like, bombing, that's not a good feeling. When you up there and you have this idea of what's funny and that people just looking at you like that definitely is a feeling that like, ooh, I suck on multiple levels. But all those experiences are really great, because then you start to learn sometimes, oh, I wasn't being authentic, or I wasn't relating to the audience, or this punchline, this joke doesn't really connect with the audience. It doesn't make sense to them. Like the idea that makes sense in my head is not making sense to them. So now I got to do a better job of setting the table so that they kind of understand my thought process. So bombing is actually a really great experience for a comedian. You learn so much. And when it's going well, it's like, and it's unlike anything else. That feeling of being on stage, and you can just play the audience like an instrument. You just know exactly what's going to make them laugh, and you know what's coming, and you can kind of feel the wave of energy through the audience, and that's the funnest part. Because sometimes you'll tell a joke and the joke ends, but you feel the wave of laughter still going, and so then you'll start improvising and telling more jokes to keep that wave going. So it's a really amazing experience. And it kind of almost restarted for me after the pandemic, because, when the pandemic happened, I wasn't performing. I performed like a couple Zoom shows, but those were kind of weird. So it was like more than a year of not performing. So getting back out there into the LA comedy scene, it kind of started bringing up those feelings again of like, I'm meeting a whole bunch of new people. I'm trying out a whole bunch of new material that I've gained from being in the pandemic, from being married. My wife and I got married in the pandemic. So like, I got a whole bunch of new material to try out and work out. And that's been a really great experience too.
And you've mentioned comedy, and shout outs to Jackie Harry. You guys know her as Lisa on Sister Sister. She said something in one of her interviews when it comes to, and she also did 227 as well. She said when it comes to comedy, it's about time. And I've sat with quite a few comedians on this platform, from Tommy Davidson to Rudy Rush to Samson McCormick and so many others. Omar Gooden just recently. Who inspires you in the world of comedy? Who are some icons that you look up to? And, when you see them on stage, or, and the next time, what would you want to say to them? Like, wow.
Yeah. So I have so many influences, but just to start off, like my first remembrance of influence was in Living Color. So like Tommy Davidson, David Allen Greer, Damon Wayans, Jim Carrey, those, performers were like, they were almost kind of like what set my comedy, my sense of humor, my tone for what I like. Martin's his TV show, Martin, was a huge influence. Eddie Murphy, huge influence. So my first influence was characters and these Black performers who were great at jumping into impressions and characters and doing these things. Those are the ones that kind of set my taste of like, this is what I love. And then in terms of like stand up, I mean, Chappelle is one of the people that I love in terms of his older specials. I know some of his newer ones that got some controversy, but like his Killing Them Softly special, when he talked so much about, class, race, police brutality, all that stuff, but he made it so funny. That was one of my. Chris Rock was another one, when he would, the Bring the Pain special, one of my favorites. Wanda Sykes was a huge influence. So a lot of these comics influenced me so much. And so what I would say to them is, sometimes you just never know specifically how powerful your impact is. Like, even if you're a comedian, you're performing and you have this creative idea of like, I want to do this character, or I want to tell this joke. You just have no idea what it means to an individual, right? You might have an audience full of people that's laughing and stuff like this, but literally those performers shaped my life and what I do in my whole creative journey. So. Yeah.
And I've seen some of your comedy. I went through your page because you do a lot of TikToks as well. We'll talk about that. But you've mentioned Dave Chappelle and his Killing Me Softly special. When I thought of that, I said, ooh, okay, what comedian has done something similar to this that has been pivotal, that has spoken out about issues for us? And we're going to talk about you because you've also wrote for the CBS Diversity Showcase back in 2015, which is huge. because we definitely need it in the world of entertainment when it comes to Black actors, content creators, and individuals of color. Um, Paul Mooney,
Oh
that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
first person who I came to because he hit it right on the head. It's
yeah.
like and I had this conversation with Samson. Um, he asked me about the Dave Chappelle. How did I feel about it? I said, yeah, it was offensive. Like you offended an entire community. Comedy, in a way, is dangerous, but it should be an escape for people. It should be healing, laughter, and that's what we need more than anything. It's love and laughter. But Paul Mooney, when we talk about race, was right on. And when you mentioned that, I said, "Oh, Paul Mooney," because he spoke about things like this that we're still going through then and now in the present with, police brutality and racism and diversity. We see what's going on with the Oscars. You're in Los Angeles, so you already know what to
Hmm.
expect. So when we talk about race, how does it feel for you? And this is my question for you. Being a writer back in 2015 on the CBS Diversity, what was running through your mind? What was that feeling? Do you feel like, wow, I'm doing this for all of us? Or it's just like, this is unbelievable. Like, is this real? Do you ever get that feeling where it's just like, wow, this can't be happening?
Well, in that situation, it was kind of interesting because I'd been doing a lot of improv and sketch at UCB, and so I was kind of already in that type of comedy sketch community. So when I got kind of my homie Ishmael Saeed, he was in a improv group at UCB, and he actually mentioned, I think he recommended me, and he was like, "Yo, you should just come in and see if you can write some sketches for it, right?" And so when I came in the room, I knew most of the people. So being in that kind of writers' room experience felt very familiar. It didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm in, because I knew everybody there. Um, and I always had a very clear point of view on the type of comedy I liked. So I kind of never did. I think in the CBS Diversity Showcase, people want to get their sketches on, right?
Yeah.
And they want to be approved by the creative team who are like, the head casting, the head writer, the head whatever. Um, and sometimes they like, what are they like? I might write something like this, write something like this. I always wrote what I liked. So, and I knew my perspective was going to talk about something about race or something about social stuff inside of a comedy and joke thing. So I never necessarily felt like I have to do this to represent all of us because I knew what I naturally was drawn to was ideas that did that already. I remember um, one sketch I did that really did well, and this was actually the next year I did when I wrote and performed it in the CBS Diversity Showcase. It was a Black Magic sketch, and so the initial idea for that was all this police brutality stuff was happening, stuff with Trayvon Martin, stuff with some of these you know tragic situations, and I was just
Heavy.
driving feeling really just kind of down, and I was driving to sketch rehearsal where we have to pitch ideas. And I was thinking like, all this stuff makes me feel awful. What can I do to make it comedic in a way that still highlights these issues? um, and I was just thinking of the thing of like, how every time a Black person holds something that's non-lethal, whether it be Skittles, whether it be iced tea, whether it be a wallet, police think it's a gun, right? Or they think it's something dangerous. So automatically that made me think of like a magic world, like, oh, it's like a magician. Magicians can just change stuff like that. And so I had this idea of this Black magic sketch. Like, what if this Black magician is doing these tricks for this white audience, right? And and all the magician tricks are just like institutional racism stuff. So like the first thing would be like, you put a resume that says Sean Williams, and you put a white audience member up and like, now, please, sir, if you were an employer, would you hire this person? And then he's like, Sean Williams works at USC, summa cum laude. Okay, yeah, great, right. This is a great resume. I'm like, okay, now with the flick of my wrist, I will change his mind. Would you interview him now? And it turned into Deshaun Williams, same resume, and he was like, we're no longer hiring. I was like, look at that, Black magic. I just changed his mind. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
those ideas of just like highlighting those like institutional racism stuff through the lens of like a magician sketch, ideas like that are things that kind of inspired and excited me, and a lot of people love that sketch. A lot of people came up to me and said they really loved how I was able to take those ideas and kind of represent them in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And fast forward, we're gonna get to it because I know you've been wanting to talk about it. Insecure with Issa Rae. What was it like getting the call to be on this television show? Because I know for me as a black woman, she's groundbreaking and breaking barriers for women of color like myself and so many others. I'm not as big as her, but she's
Hmm.
inspiring for so many black girls and women of color just in general that are in the writers' room, like Ava DuVernay and so many others. What was it like getting that call to be a part of Insecure?
Yeah, yeah, that was. I mean, like you said, Issa Rae's an icon, and that show Insecure is iconic. So it was kind of funny. So when I first auditioned, I auditioned for the role player plumber, and it's just this character description was basically like this guy runs like a YouTube channel where he teaches people how to like fix plumbing issues, but he's like a player with it, right? And so I read the scene, and the scene is just it's just so funny. It's just like all innuendos of like, yeah, yeah, we about to bust this pipe wide open. I'm gonna teach y'all how to lay pipe, like, you know. So I just kind of come in with like my tank top out, you know, kind of like, you know, getting that swag on. And I do the first round audition, and it's fun. But then I look at the breakdown and I realize Phil Augusta Jackson wrote the episode. If you don't know Phil Augusta Jackson, brilliant writer. He was the creator of the most recent show on NBC, Grand Crew. And me and him have been doing improv for a long time with the improv group that we formed with Aaron Covington, Kenneth Jackson, David Ayala. We had a few more, but
Amazing.
we were
Yeah.
called Phi Beta Negro. So we were an all-black improv group, and we just had a great run of having some great shows. So I knew him from the improv world, and we were cool. So after I auditioned, I was like, "Hey, yo, by the way, just auditioned for the episode you wrote, man." And he was like, "Oh, for real? Cool, cool. We're gonna check it out, man. Check out your video. I'll let Issa know." And so then I think a couple of days later, I get a call back for it. Do the call back goes well. Yeah, yeah. And then I think either he hit me up or my agents hit me up, and they were like, "You got it." So that was just like exciting, and not only just to get it and to work on that show, but to work with my homie, and just being proud of the work my homie was doing. And so actually shooting the scene was fun because then costume comes in and they start giving me all these like player like wardrobe stuff. So like they come in with like these gold chains and velour suits, and I'm trying on these different options. And every time I wear an outfit, I'm like, "Ooh, this is fly." I feel like I'm getting into character. Um, and so once we actually went and actually shot the scene, it was also really cool because, you know, Phil was the writer of the episode, so him and the director were working together to get the shot. So the director's directing me, but also Phil's is just kind of like we're just kind of running lines together. Um, and so we do we do like a couple takes just as is, and then me and him we improvise together. So we're like, cool, let's just improvise, man. So you know, he would feed me some alt lines, some alt jokes, then I would improvise some, and we were just playing. We just got to play like we did back in the day. Um, and so that was real cool. So then when the actual scene came out, they used one of my improv lines in that part. So that was really fun, and it's cool. I've been a part of like a lot of shows and stuff, but I haven't been a part of a show that's so loved. So it's really cool having everybody's response and excitement afterwards. You know.
And once you've seen yourself and you heard your punchback lines and so many things on this show, what was it like? What was that experience like?
Oh, I mean, that experience was it was I was just grateful, you know. I think it was during a time too where, you know, as an actor, things are rarely like linear. Like basketball, when I play basketball, is linear. The harder you work, the better you get, the more opportunities you get, and you keep on going from that point. Being an actor, being in entertainment, it's up and down. So I've had some years where things are going up and up and up, and then some years where like nothing's happening. So I think that was during a period where I wasn't really getting much work. I don't know if I just came. I lived in Atlanta for a while with my wife when before we were engaged. So I don't know if I just came back from there, but it was during a time where wasn't a lot happening. So when that popped off, I was just super grateful, like super grateful. Just like, yeah, just sticking with it, you know, sticking with it even through the ups and downs. Being really grateful came through somebody that I had a really great experience and relationship with, a friendship with, and a creative. a good creative flow with. So it was beautiful. I was just grateful.
And you've also done some commercials, but before we get to that, we have a question from one of our
Mhm.
fashion dolls. Shout outs to Liz. She wants to know, how does it feel to create from no reference point? Would you say improv is your creation in that moment?
So there's two things, like just improvising, period. Um, I've been doing it so long and kind of trained for so long that, like, when I do an improv show, a lot of times we just get a word, right? They might say stack. And then me and the whole group of people, we've been trained, we have a good chemistry, so we just go from that. And that's fun. It's freeing because I trust the people that I'm with. We all know we kind of get each other. So creating from no reference point is actually freeing. It's a lot of fun because you just get to make choices. Now for this one, for like TV and film, this one's a little different because you have a reference point, you have the script, you have the lines, you have the comedic idea. So with that one, it's like locking in on what the comedic idea is, which is a very specific avenue, and then finding all your improv within that avenue. So having that script about being the player plumber and the type of jokes they already told, I'm like, cool, this is my sandbox. When I'm improvising, I need to play within this sandbox. Sometimes it's a little more restrictive, but actually sometimes it can be easier because it's like you have more direction.
And just go wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So we're going to get to some commercials because you've also been on the Tonight Show. You've done commercials for Mini Cooper, State Farm, and Foot Locker. And my question for you is, with you being a comedian, I'm pretty sure that there has been some outtakes and things that have been happening on set during while you're taping a commercial. And the director was like, okay, you can't do that. So tell us from experience, the funniest thing that has happened to you behind the scenes during shooting a commercial.
I don't know if this is funniest, but it was the most surprising. So usually, like, I'm a very energetic guy, right? So like when we're waiting for something, I'm usually like dancing, moving around, and doing goofy stuff. So I was doing it was an HP Hewlett Packard commercial, and I ended up being like the main person in the campaign. So they're like rolling camera. They got the sound and everything going, but I'm just waiting for their direction because the director's talking to somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm just like pop locking, kind of dancing, like doing this whole thing, doing all that, and I'm dancing and doing that thing, and they were laughing and they were just like, "Wait, do that again." I was just like, "Okay, bop, 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 boom, 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 boom," and it ended up being in one of the commercials. Like they just used that segment. So I had no idea that they were even filming or like attempting to put that in there. And that's happened a couple times. Like the AT&T commercial I did. I just did one recently where I do like a complicated football handshake with Milena, who plays the main AT&T lady. And when we were rehearsing, we were just doing that. And then I just kind of danced away. And the choreographer, Kat Burns, she's really great. She was choreographing some of the handshakes. She's a dancer. She's like, oh, do that again, and then add this to it. Da, da, da. And so that became like the exit for the commercial. I did a Nickelodeon sitcom, Nicky, Ricky, Dickie, and Dawn, and that was an element they added. I played like this eccentric Elon Musk character, and I think after I exited a scene, I did that. I did another dance thing again. I was just playing around in rehearsal. They're like, "That's perfect. That's got to be the exit." So there's been like 4 different times during the project where I'm just messing around dancing, and there are people just put that into the actual scene.
Okay. That kind of got us in the mood, all right? And we got another question. In the acting space, do you trust your colleague blindly? Shout outs to Liz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it kind of all depends. So if you're in an acting scene and you know this person, you have good chemistry, then it's just like you both kind of get it and you just trust each other. Sometimes though you don't know them at all, and even sometimes if you don't know them, you still have like good chemistry if you meet them in like hair and makeup trailer as you're getting ready, or you might have some small talk before. Having little moments like that just to kind of get the energy, find out what the chemistry and energy is between you, that can help a lot. So when you do the scene, you can be like, okay, cool, we can just do the scene. But every now and then, say you're just walking in and you haven't met them, right? You don't know what their energy is like, and you're just coming in and the director's like, okay, here's the scene. You do this, boom, boom, boom. Cool, you guys got it? I think the only choice you can is to try and trust them. because at that point you really don't have any other choice. You know, sometimes you can make a choice and it can, let's say, not go well, or they can do something that makes you feel like it kind of steps on your line. Then after that, you can kind of rebound and kind of work on that chemistry. But I think in the very beginning, you really don't have much of a choice but to just go in and trust, you know?
Oh, another powerful question. Shout out to Liz. She wants to know, what do you fear, if anything, about acting? And we kind of covered this last week on my show where we talked about doing things out of fear. So for you as an actor, if you fear anything, what do you?
You know what I would fear is being untruthful, being inauthentic, and kind of having unfortunately, me and my wife, we were watching a lot of response from Viola Davis's performance of Michelle Obama in the new series. And Viola Davis, she's the queen. She's one of the best actors, in my, opinion, ever. And Michelle Obama, beloved, right? But for whatever reason, it was just strange. Like when we were watching it, we were like, this is really, it was just a lot. And it kind of looked like a sketch, like an SNL sketch or something. So I
Right.
think my biggest fear is like being in that world and being like, this is what we're doing. Here's our intention. We're going to, do this. It's going to be powerful. And then how it actually comes off is like completely different. I think that's my biggest fear, the fear of like, here's what I'm going for. I'm going for this truthful moment. And then when it comes out, it's like, ooh, that looked weird. That was not truthful at all. That was goofy. I don't know what y'all was going for. So, it's also humbling too to know you can be the greatest and still sometimes those kind of misalignments happen. And, that's just a part of it.
Absolutely. And it's about being genuine. And as you said in the beginning of the interview, when you're going for your audience, you want authenticity. When you're creating that bond with your audience, your viewers, you want authenticity. And that's just what it is. So that's what it
Yeah.
should be. And we have another question. Have you ever walked away from a part because it did not sit well with you on a personal level?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't have the part, but I chose not to audition for parts. And I've always kind of had this from the very beginning of my acting career, even before I had any type of roles or anything. Because me and my whole family are vegan, and I don't drink alcohol, so I chose not to do any commercials that sold any of those products. And so, especially my age group, like I could have done so many Bud Light and McDonald's or whatever commercials. But I'm like, that's just not who I am. It's not what I want to do. So I told my agents that up front, and they were like, cool, we support you. So I've always kind of had that element of like, I don't need, and even if I don't have anything, right? Even if I don't
Right.
have a gig, even if I'm at the bottom of my career, I don't need to do anything that doesn't feel like who I am. So I remember there was one pilot season. This is a show, I won't name the show because the show is still going on. But it was a pilot that was happening, right? And the pilot, man, was so racially tone deaf. And I was going to play like one of the main cast members in the pilot. And yeah, it was kind of written by a white guy, but it was talking about, dealing with a white family, dealing in like a Black and Latino neighborhood. And it was just like all of the jokes and all of the comedy was just like racially tone deaf and like offensive to me, right? So I'm just like, I'm not auditioning for this, And I actually sent an email to my agents telling them why specifically and the specific parts in the script and kind of how it came off. And they supported me 100%. They were like, wow, yeah, we didn't even read the full script, but now we're reading this. You're right. And they actually sent it around to their agency just to kind of, because it was such a clear thing that I was kind of highlighting there. So that was an experience that was a good experience to know that my reps supported me. And then the very next day, I got to audition for something that was like a really cool, good project. And funny enough, that project ended up getting made, but then they attached somebody who was the lead, who's like a well-known a Black actor, and they were a producer of it. Now they're attached as a producer. And I think when the project actually came out, it did change quite a bit, because I think as that Black actor being a producer, I'm sure they were like, nah, this gotta change, So I think it's actually a show people are enjoying now, and it's much more representative. But I think in that first draft, before any like black creatives got to be signed on as producers, it was like, hell no, I'm not doing this.
So do you think that we're making progress with the step, as you mentioned, with this particular show, you know, the star of the show now being a producer on it? Do you think that we're making progress slowly but surely when it comes to diversity in Hollywood and just the entertainment business in general? Or do you think we're still sort of at the stage?
Yeah, I think we're making progress, but I think progress is like sometimes it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, kind of like it can be cyclical at times, you know. I think the baseline, like the baseline is raising, but within that baseline, there's a lot of ups and downs. Um, so, I mean, I've seen so many more creators of color having opportunities to create their own shows, and I'm seeing more stories being of lives that I haven't seen on screen before, of lead characters I haven't seen on screen before. So I definitely do think it's getting better. I just think there's just so much, you know, it's such a huge landscape that needs to evolve. So there's pockets of it where it is, and then there's pockets of it where it's not. So yeah, but I think overall it's definitely hopeful and definitely encouraging. And we also live in a time where, you know what, you really don't, I don't know, you can buy into, I understand the importance of the Oscars. I understand the importance of being like a part of these networks, but also we have so much other avenues where we can express ourselves in the exact way we want to, whether it be all these different social media platforms or different streaming things. To kind of allow people more of a voice. Yeah.
We got another question. Would you like to dive deeper into this art, for example, directing, screenwriting?
Definitely. I think I definitely have desire for that. I think where I'm at with my career right now is like stand up is like number one. I love it so much, and that's the purest form of my expression. And I'm trying to be the greatest stand up I can and put together a great hour that I can have showcased somewhere, and whether it be on streaming or YouTube or whatever. Then on top of that, it's like acting and performing on camera and on screen and developing my career in that way. Then I think after that is writing and directing, because writing your own sketches, performing them, and doing things live, you kind of naturally write and direct yourself at times. So there are
Mm-hmm.
times when I have images in my head of like, oh, or like a little story. I'm like, oh, wow, that would look good. Or, and this type of shot would look good for this type of scene. So I definitely have that desire. And I see myself doing that in the future. But I know right now, that's not something I want to add on to my plate.
All right, fashion dolls, you know what time it is. It's about the time to get into these games with Londale here. The first one is going to be called His Thoughts. And I'm going to go down a list of comedy pioneers, and you give me one word to describe. Second one is going to be called the Rapid Five. And you have to tell me 5 things that you can't live without. So I'm going to start off with His Thoughts. All right, fashion dolls. So I'm going to go down the list of comedians and give me one word. All right, the first comedian would definitely have to be Leslie Jones.
Insanely funny. That's 2 words, but insanely funny.
Okay.
And also one of the best specials that came out in the past 2-3 years.
All right. Richard Pryor.
Genius.
Red Fox.
Uncle.
Monique.
Fierce.
All right. Martin Lawrence.
Silly.
Okay. And last but certainly not least, Eddie Murphy.
The best.
All right. All right, fashion dolls. Those are hit starts. Just giving the ground and breaking the ground for so many comedians out here to see what each other starts. It's sort of like actors on actors. I was watching Regina King and Audrey Ellis, and they were sitting down having a conversation with the Hollywood Reporter. And these are 2 amazing actresses, and they were just giving flowers for each other's work. So that's kind of what his thoughts. So definitely. All right, fashion dolls, it is time for the rapid 5. And Londale has to tell us 5 things that he can't live without. So what are your top 5 favorite things that you can't live without?
To be honest, and I gotta thank my wife on this one. Ever since I grew out my hair, can't live without my bonnet. I can't live without sleeping with my bonnet now. Um, I can't live without my Nalgene water bottle. Bring it everywhere, indestructible. I can't live without oatmeal every day for breakfast. I can't live. I can't live without, I would say, my phone. Not because of social media, not because of all this stuff, but because that's where I write. I have a Google Doc where I write all my jokes in. So whenever I'm going somewhere out and about and I have a joke idea, boom, I put it in my Google Doc on my phone. I would say finally, I can't live without, I would say, some type of I have a yoga mat. I can't live without my yoga mat. Stretching, working out on there. Yeah.
Yes, because you did mention you were vegan. So my question for you is, because Liz has a question also. She said, "What childhood lesson do you still hold dear to you, dear till this day?"
Cool. Childhood lesson. I say probably the most impactful moment of my younger years happened when I went to, it was basketball related. I played in like the suburbs and I was like 14 years old and I was good. I was good in my community, right? Really good. And then I went to LA where like the best players in Southern California were playing. So I went to that type of a gym and man, I was the worst by far on the court. And the guy who ran the league, I just wanted to come and check it out. He's like, "You got your shoes?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Come on, I'll put you in the next game." And I was terrified. And so I went in that game and I got ran off the court. Everyone was bigger than me, stronger than me, faster than me, better than me. And it was such like an intimidating or overwhelming experience. But right after that, I'm like shaking up. My best friend came to watch too. And I'm like shaking up in my back seat. My pops, he was like, "So what do you want to do? Do you want to play basketball? Do you want to be the best you can be?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "If you play in this and commit to it and have no fear, you will become better. And this is the avenue to become the best you can be. But if you don't, if you're too scared, if you don't want to do it, if it's too uncomfortable, that's fine." And so I was like, "No, I want to come back here every week." And so he's like, "All right." So we went back there every week. And sure enough, the more I played, the better I got. And the more it just felt like I was kind of used to that uncomfortable zone. And so that's the biggest lesson I take away is like, if you are thrown into a situation where you feel like it is way over your head, where you feel like you are overwhelmed or it's extremely uncomfortable, yet you know somewhere this is the avenue where you can get better and this is the kind of things you say you want, you just got to attack it and go with it. And if you stick with it, you can overcome that fear and it'll be the greatest growth experience you've had. So every time I've kind of been thrown into new situations that I feel maybe sometimes are over my head, I just go at it. And it's usually been a really great growth experience.
And that's what it's about. Again, it goes back to what I just said, doing things out of fear. And um, Liz, she asked this question, I think it was the day before, about the elements of earth, earth, wind, fire, water. Um, I always choose fire because I'm the type of person, I do things out of fear. I'm just so courageous. I've grown out of it. And before I was scared, but now I'm just like, okay, you never know until you try it. Sometimes you have to make change, and change
Mm-hmm.
can be scary, but however, you never know the outcome. And for me, I'm quite happy with the changes that I've made throughout my life, whatever it was. If I've lost or took some L's or things, I'm like, okay, that's just another day for me to go back and rethink, regrow, reevaluate, and most importantly, reflect on everything that I need to work on to make myself just that better. So that's
Mm-hmm.
all it is.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing to take away with you in life and to keep that with you.
Absolutely. So I'm backpedaling now because you said, oatmeal, and you mentioned a yoga mat as well too. Um, has it been difficult transitioning from eating what you regularly eat and doing these things that you used to do now in the vegan lifestyle? Because I know I have a couple friends who are vegan. I'm not personally myself. I'm from South Carolina, so we're the home of the barbecue and things. So it's been difficult, but for you, how has it been going from previously what you used to do to now into this whole new just attire and culture of foods and healthy living?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the change was pretty small for me because my parents had raised my sister and I vegetarian since birth. So we already didn't eat, animals or chicken, fish, and even eggs. We didn't eat eggs, but we ate dairy. So it wasn't until my freshman year of college where my mom, she was basically, I got to the point where I got like so big and strong and athletic. When people would find out I never ate meat, they were always like, what the hell do you feed that boy? So my mom started, based on a lot of those questions, she started a vegetarian soul food cookbook to talk about the recipes she would make and kind of feed our family. So in doing that and releasing that cookbook and doing the research, as she did research, she was like, you know what? She's researching more about the food industry and kind of some of the practices. She was like, you know what? I think it's better if we just go vegan, just cut out dairy. We're almost there anyway. I just think it's just better, right? So we're like, okay, cool. I had already cut out some dairy because of I had exercise-induced asthma. When I cut out some dairy, it kind of stopped that. So once I made that transition, it wasn't really a huge jump because I already hadn't ate meat, hadn't ate eggs, anything like that. So it's kind of funny where, I've kind of raised in a way where I've kind of been knowledgeable of what type of foods give me what I need, especially playing like Division I college sports. Like I need a whole lot of fuel and I ate a lot. So I was always kind of aware and savvy of what type of stuff to eat and type of stuff to cook. So sometimes when my friends would transition to vegan, right, and try it out, they would ask me how to deal with that. I'm like, I mean, I can tell you what I eat, but the transition, I didn't need much of a transition, and sometimes some of them know more about like vegan restaurants than I do because I mainly do home cooked stuff. So that's kind of like the funny dichotomy of being vegan and vegetarian for like all my life. That sometimes people who make that change have a much more a difficult journey, and that's actually like a bigger, sometimes people say it's impressive you've never eaten meat. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I think it's impressive that someone ate meat most of their life and then makes that switch. That's impressive to me,
All right. So that sums that up. If those of you who are wondering out there changing about healthier living, healthier lifestyle, so many other things, I believe that exercise is important too. With this thing going on, things are starting to open back up. People are still going to the gyms and sometimes exercising at home. But make sure that you guys are eating properly, staying healthy as well too. I believe in mind, body, and soul. Make sure you take care of yourself, self-care, even all. So we have
Mm-hmm.
another question for you, and it's from Liz again. Shout outs to her. She wants to know what spirit animal embodies your spirit. Great question.
The spirit animal embodies my strength. Hmm. I have there's an animal. I don't know if it embodies my strength, but it definitely does embody a certain element to me. So I had a joke I used to tell when I would impersonate a sexy giraffe about how sexy giraffes walk and drink water, and I would imitate it so well it always got such a huge response. So just I'm so long and lanky, got these long legs, and how I move. I would say like when I think of like a giraffe, sometimes I think of like that being my spirit animal.
Okay. Okay. That's a great question, Liz. Shout outs to her. Definitely, she's laughing at everybody. All right.
Thanks for the questions,
Thank
Liz.
you. Do we have any more questions for Londale? This is such a great, great conversation interview. So before we conclude, while I'm waiting on everyone to type their questions and stuff, my last question for you is, what advice would you give to the next generation that is looking to follow in your footsteps, or be the next Richard Pryor, or the next Londale, or the next Eddie Murphy, or the next Bernie Mac? What advice would you give to up and coming comedians? Because there's so many. The next, like the DC Young Flies and Michael Blacksons and so many others. What advice would you give to the next generation of up and coming comedians? And do you have any projects coming out?
I would say the advice is always follow what excites you the most. There is no kind of set path. So the path that you're going to be on is going to be very unique to you. So the most difficult thing, especially with social media, is to not compare yourself to other people's journeys. I had to learn that lesson for a while. I was trying to keep up with, social media is a very small snippet of someone's life. So it's not the full truth. But if that's all you see, that's what you think the world is. And so you might see a bunch of people doing this and doing that, and having this in the career, and you feel like, oh, I need to do more. I need to do more to catch up with them. And you're catching up with something that's not real in a sense, right? And you can burn yourself out. So I'd always say, try not to compare yourself to others. Try to focus on what excites you and follow that. And know that your journey is going to be unique. And even if it does take different turns than other of your peers, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you're not as good or not as worthy of that. And just consistency, stick with it. There's times where I felt like, a couple of years without getting work and just feeling like maybe this ain't going to happen. But just stick with it. If you love it, if you have a passion for it, find a way to stick with it. That's probably the biggest thing.
Absolutely. If you have a passion, or again, I tell people all the time, if you have a passion or goal or dream or something that you're passionate about doing or going for. I know for me, I love hair, I love doing makeup, and I love doing nails. I'm a glamour girl. So for me, this is something I went to beauty school for it during my high school years. And I failed the test the first time, and I went back because my father was the military man.
Mm.
He's not really into all of that, but he does love getting his hair cut and stuff. But he said, "Oh no, you're going back to take that test." Me, I was just like, "No, I give up. I'm not going to." And my girlfriend, who's been doing my hair for years, she motivated me to go back. And my father, when he found out, he motivated me to go back and take that test as well too. And I took it the second time, and I passed it with flying colors. So that just goes to show you, if you give up on something, you know, and this is something that you never know the outcome, what, the next outcome could be. So definitely stay tuned, stay focused. And we have another question for you. Performing and traveling can take you away from home. How do you balance family and work? Yes, especially as a performer.
Yeah. So it's been really interesting. So my wife's family is mainly in the South Carolina, Georgia, and Detroit. And most of my family's out here. So we definitely have to really be strategic in terms of balancing family stuff. So there's times where I'm working out here and working in LA. Most of the work I do is in LA. But then there's times where we gotta travel and spend time with the in-laws, the nieces and nephews. They're all like little. So when I'm doing that, every now and then I'll still keep certain availabilities and audition for stuff. But a lot of times I'll just cut it off. I'm like, listen, I'm not available for auditions, not available for stuff. This is family time. So and we'll spend like 2 weeks in South Carolina just with her family and the kids. And I have to find time where it's like I can't have a lack mentality, meaning like, oh my God, I'm missing out. There's only so many resources, so many opportunities. It's like you're not going to get that time back with family, especially with the little kids. Like you're building that relationship with them as an aunt and uncle. So it's like I'm just going to do this and not focus on work, and it's going to be fine. So yeah.
And it was somebody who said something about that in the interview. I'm glad Liz brought that point. I think it was Toni Braxton. I was watching her today, and she was talking about balancing family and having a career as an actress and as a singer and going on tour and being away from her family and things like that. And sometimes, she took her family with her on the road. So it's difficult. And I asked that question to a lot of people because I know for me, even with social media, thank God I'm still able to be able to see my family and things, because it's been difficult for a lot of people to maneuver around and do things in this pandemic. But thank God for the power of technology where we're able to contact and reach out to one of our family members. I know I keep in touch with my cousins and my
Mm-hmm.
aunt and my grandmother. I see my grandmother and my mom's mom, and I'm
Yeah.
able to see my mom. And then my brother brings his girlfriend down. So it's good to be able to see family and conversate and just be able to spend time with one another. Because when it's family time, I agree with you on that as well too. When it's family time, it's family time. Like when
Mm-hmm.
I do Style by Stevie, I do Style by Stevie. But when it's time for me to unplug after I do that interview, I'm just like, okay, I'll reply back to your comments, whatever. Let that be that. But this is my time for me and my family. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you gotta unplug and go back into the real world. Give that time because you miss out on those moments, those
Yeah. Yeah.
precious moments. You mentioned the nieces and the nephews. Graduation season is coming down here, so I'm like, okay, we don't want to miss out on those moments, or the first steps, or
Mm-hmm.
the first ballet recital. All of these things, be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Yes, family is key, and having that strong, solid support circle is definitely key as well.
Yeah. It definitely. I've been fortunate where the people around me truly believe in what I do and believe in my dreams. And I've been very fortunate enough that my parents from day one have supported whatever dream I had. You know, first it was basketball; they fully supported that. You know, then it turned into acting and comedy and that, and they fully supported that. So.
Do we have any more questions for Londale Fashion Dolls before we conclude? Well, we got another one. Has being a public persona taken away from your privacy? Ooh.
Trust me, I'm not that public. No one really knows me. Like every now and then, I'm like, do I recognize you? I always get confused. Ain't you J. Cole? You look like J. Cole. That's about as much. That's about as much attention I get in public. So no, nothing is taken away from my privacy thus far.
Yes, and that's the good part about it. Even for me, I haven't got. I'm not that big yet, but it's slowly but surely coming. I'm just like, thank God. I was watching another interview with somebody. It was a supermodel, Christy Turlington. She said at that time she was in college. She was going off to Paris and doing fashion shows and magazine covers and stuff. That Dave Letterman asked her that question. Another great comedy icon as well. He asked her, "Do you ever get recognized, and has that ever taken away from your privacy? Just you wanting to shoot the breeze or blend in, because people who have that public persona, it's difficult for them. They want to do things that all of us, well, they're regular people just like us, but when they go out, it's to an extreme. They go out with security, everything. So, they want to be able to blend in and just be regular for a while. Put on your sweats and your slacks, whatever it is, and just go out or go to Wally World or whatever it is, just like us." Oh, great question. What do these words make you feel, Londale? Sidewalk, brick, wind, fire.
Sidewalk, brick, wind, fire. Sidewalk, brick. Sidewalk and brick just kind of reminds me of just like being in the city. Sometimes, like when I would go in New York, I would love visiting, and just there's just so much culture and creativity in New York, and such and it's just like mashed all together, and that's what I love,
Mm-hmm.
the energy of it. I love being and visiting New York, just being like, it's just like there's just like a crackling energy of just like culture and creativity and so much stuff happening. So that's what that reminds me of. Wind and wire. um Wind kind of reminds me of Earth, Wind and Fire, which is I love that music. And September is one of my favorite songs ever. So every time that plays, I'm boogieing, I'm dancing.
All right, all right. And I think that covers that, fashion dolls. When I think of when you mention New York, because I have family there, I think of the world's biggest slices of pizza I've ever seen. And I went to New
Mm.
York when I was like, what, 8 years old. So yeah, that's what I think about is the pizza.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
You are so welcome. It was such a pleasure having you here. Is there any upcoming comedy specials or anything you want to plug in on the show?
I would just say you can follow my IG. I perform a lot in Los Angeles, and I'm always putting my shows up. So if you want to come see me live, go there. Um, I also have my Linktree bio, Linktree link in my bio, and I always have whether more comedy clips or comedy coaching and stuff like that. You can always check that out.
And yes, this is something that you're serious about doing, getting into comedy or hosting a show like I'm doing. It's always good to reach out to the ones out here who are doing this, because we can help you along the way or whatever it is, whatever it say may be. So let everyone know where they can follow you, and what piece of advice would you give to the next upcoming set of comedians out here that are looking to follow you?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Londale Jr., Londalejr. I also have a website for comedy coaching called YouGotJokesAcademy.com. You can check that out. And also, I say the advice for the next generation of comedians is, you just have to do it all the time, do it a lot. And the more you do it, the more you will find what your voice is. And in the beginning, you could be kind of mirroring other people that you're influenced by, but the more you do it, eventually you're going to find your specific voice. And trust that, and trust that, and trust that it's okay to bomb. You're going to learn from it, and just keep at it. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Stick with it.
All right, fashion dolls, and that concludes our interview. No interview, no show tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you guys tune in Saturday. We have the Horn Ducati. Sunday, kicking off Sunday, May 1st. You guys know that day is very, very special to me. Again, I'm a fashion girl. The Met Gala, which is the biggest event in fashion. I'm praying that they do it this year. So we have Elijah Nickleby, who is an artist, is going to be here with us this Sunday, prime time. So make sure you guys tune in for that. I love you all, and thank you all for tuning in for our interview with Londale Jr. Such a pleasure having you here.
Miss Stevie, thank you so much. Thank you for real.
It is such a pleasure. I'd love to have you on again in the future.
Definitely, definitely. We'll definitely have to link up.
All right, fashion dolls, take care. You guys have a blessed, thankful Thursday. I love you all, and I will see you guys Saturday and Sunday. Take care.